those select few that are already initiated, you should already know what's coming next. And for those of you that aren't, just chill. See, we gonna get down to the other stuff here in a minute, but what I'm always trying to get everybody to understand is everything is vibration. So, with that in mind, there really ain't nothing else left to do. Yes, sir. Let me go into Ray Charles mode. It's about that time for you to open up your ear and let me crawl into your mind. One time. That bitch is so nasty. What it was, y'all. Y'all already know who it is. And y'all tuned in with Priceless Knowledge of Self. And this right here, this ain't nothing but some cosmic insight. And what this also is just another deep dive into the intricacies that are you. And what I mean by that this time is this right here. This a little something about the major aspects between Jupiter and Neptune in your natal chart. And understand that I said major aspects. That means I'm talking about conjunctions, oppositions, trines, squares, sextiles, and inconjunctions, or quincunxes, which is what inconjunctions are also referred to these days. That means I'm not talking about sesquadrants. That means I'm not talking about quintiles or biquintiles or semisextiles or semisquares or your YODs or your trine or your grand trines. I will talk about your trines, pardon me. Your grand trines or your kites or your stelliums. Not this time. First, we're going to master the basics. So it's a good thing you got me. And so before we get into the aspects, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to tell you just a little bit about Jupiter. And so once I tell you a little bit about that energy and how it might affect you, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Neptune. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit about that energy and how it might affect you. And then after that, we're going to bring it to a crescendo. And eventually, a climax. And fortunately for you, that's my forte. So without wasting any more time, man, let's get this thing cracking. So Jupiter. Oh man, Jupiter is the king of the planets. And Jupiter shows where we feel confident and in control and where we feel like we have something to teach other people. And so our Jupiter sign shows where we form our values. And the house placement of Jupiter is going to show the areas of life that we feel luckiest in. And it's also going to show the areas of life where we're going to receive the most help from other people and from the cosmos. Okay? And the aspects of Jupiter are going to show how we link it all together. You feel me? And so when we talk about Neptune, this is our spiritual aspirations and ideals, okay? But this is also where we might not be seeing things as clearly as we should be in life. Understand that. And Neptune is very generational. So it's really our direct connection to the culture that we live in, okay? So our sign placement of Neptune is going to show an idea that we want to manifest. The house placement of Neptune is going to show the area of life that we want to manifest that ideal in. Then the aspect patterns of Neptune, they're going to show the deepest unconscious links of our personality structure. All right. And so when we're looking at Jupiter conjunct to Neptune, first of all, oh, this is beautiful. And the first thing to understand about these people right here is they are always in tune with something greater than themselves. And some will call that the divine. Some will call it the collective. And some would have more specific religious names for it. But regardless of what you want to call it, not only do these folks have a solid spiritual and idealistic side of their nature that kind of causes them to value the layers that we can't physically see, but it also affects their perceptions and leaves their psyche open to channels of ideas and insights that really allow them to draw upon divine resources of all kinds, whether it be physical or spiritual or mental or monetary even. And all that could really enrich their experience of existence here on earth, for real, man. Cause, money just could come to them out of the blue. And, there's all kinds of shit that come to them with Jupiter conjunct to Neptune. But, also understand that this is Jupiter and Neptune right here. So they could really also fuck money off extremely easily too, unless they have some other shit going on in the chart that really helps them be more practical and disciplined. Okay. But all in all, these are just people who place a great deal of value in things that kind of elevate their spirits and increase their sense of openness and oneness with the universe. But also understand that the tendency to do too much can really be a motherfucker with Jupiter conjunct to Neptune. Because, hey, there is no limits here. There is no limits. This is where you get what you dream for. And sometimes when you get what you dream for, it's more than what you bargained for. Okay? There can't be too much of a good thing, okay? But I'll say this though. Even more than doing too much, here's the thing. Because some amazing, beautiful things fall into place for these people, they also end up developing some extremely powerful expectations. And that shit right there can kind of unnecessarily complicate their life sometimes. Because when I see this aspect going on in somebody's chart, I know damn well that I'm dealing with somebody who's kind of got their feelings hurt way more than one time in life because they were expecting way better than whatever it was that they got. And that's just real. And that's still going to be all right because these folks right here are never going to stop believing until they've really been proven wrong, which doesn't happen that very often at all because they believe it so much. You get it? Yeah. For instance, you know, it was Emily Dickinson, the poet and the author herself, who has this aspect in her chart, who once wrote, the brain is wider than the sky. So the soul should always stand ajar, ready to welcome the ecstatic experience. And nothing has ever been said that's more fitting to an aspect or a placement than that right there, man. And nothing is more fitting in explanation to the conjunction of these two divine energies right here, straight up. And then with Jupiter opposite to Neptune, you know, here's where shit kind of gets twisted, because here's where you're going to see people whose whole belief system, whether it be for better or for worse, it might have been formed around an illusion or a lie or a core projection that somebody else put upon them. And then that can be rough, man. And even if it ain't that, if you want to look at it from a more practical perspective, right here is where you're going to get some people who feel so motherfucking lucky that it kind of gets them into trouble, because they also have a tendency to get overextended and into financial hot water before they ever know what hit them. And not only that, they also kind of end up looking naive and gullible a lot of the times in life because they suffer from believing in their own fantasies. Plus, they're so motherfucking kind-hearted and sympathetic that they will do anything to help anybody, or really they'll do anything to make anybody happy or help enrich their experience. But that's where their poor judgment kind of gets the best of them, because that's often where they end up enabling people's negative behaviors or getting taken advantage of. So they just need to learn how to take a step back and ask themselves what would be of lasting help to people without really neglecting their own needs in the process. Okay. Because taking the long range view of shit will always be the best acid test for moment to moment decisions that people make in life with this one right here. And either way it goes, man, with Jupiter opposite to Neptune, people are going to be lucky in life, but they're seldom going to be satisfied. And their own poor judgment is going to be their own worst enemy in this case. But I will say that their charm and their positivity, it's always going to keep a few people in their corner, regardless of what goes on, man. And, you know, whatever goes on, people are going to fuck with them despite the fact that they can really work people's nerves, you know, acting like they just got everything all figured out with this one. Okay. Or acting like they just got everything coming to them and it's just all going to happen whenever they want it to, because it really don't work like that. It can, but you have to work for it too. Okay. You have to have realistic expectations and thoughts and feelings with this right here. And then when we're looking at Jupiter trine to Neptune, oh man, this is beautiful, because these people right here feel like they got a guardian angel in their corner. And, you know, when this is looking at a flowing aspect with Jupiter and Neptune, you're going to get people who emit a certain charm and a positivity that really greases the wheels of life for them. So a lot of them really end up having a broad appeal that engenders a certain trust in the general public, regardless of whether or not they can actually sustain that trust from people who know them close up. But I will say that usually, you know, they really kind of really get a beautiful life with this one. This is the best case scenario because they have an awesome spiritual insight into problems that exponentially aid their skills in finding solutions in life. But they do have to be careful, because those same ideas can kind of get them into trouble if they don't, you know, use their analytical skills that they have to carefully plan a way to keep from living in a dreamland of how things could be or how things should be without ever making them come to fruition. All right. Because it's just that easy with this, man. Because with Jupiter trine to Neptune, like, you don't need a middleman. I always tell people with prominent Neptune placements or prominent 12th house placements or prominent Pisces placements that, hey, they got a main line to the divine. But see, with Jupiter trine to Neptune right here, you don't just have a main line to the divine. You can just walk up to his desk. You can walk right up to God's desk and say, what's cracking? It's that beautiful right there. Ain't nothing to it but to do it. Okay. Now, when we're talking about Jupiter square to Neptune, oh man, this is where you're going to see people who are kind of too easily influenced due to the fact that they kind of trust too much, or they kind of trust and believe in the wrong thing. So often their values and beliefs end up in conflict with their vision of truth, which kind of causes them to have a lot of confusion in their life. And it also makes them have a lot of confusion as to what direction they should be going in. And their biggest problem, you know, once again, just comes from having unrealistic expectations. Cause I've seen more than a few people with this aspect that have a lot going for them, but they waste it kind of thinking that opportunities are just going to fall out of the sky with no effort. And it just don't work like that. It just don't work like that, period. However, I can say that this is Jupiter and Neptune. So if they remain faithful in life, eventually it will all work out according to God's plan, even if it's not according to their plan. Okay. Because like I said, it is Jupiter and Neptune after all. It's just not going to end up being how you thought it was going to be. Now, with Jupiter sextile to Neptune, all right? Oh, man. This is where you're going to encounter some really gracious and compassionate people who just have a natural understanding of the spiritual side of life. So they also have a natural appreciation of all the universe's divine subtleties with this one. Okay? So they also just deeply believe in karma, which kind of makes them naturally want to do the right thing. And, you know, that also makes people kind of naturally want to fuck with them. All right. And so things just usually come full circle in life with these people. But what this aspect does not come with is discipline. Okay. Not by itself, at least. So despite all the beautiful things that come with this one, it really can't be parlayed into anything tangible without developing some motherfucking discipline and some grit to go along with it. All right. And then with Jupiter in conjunct or quincunx to Neptune right here, man. Oh man. Lastly, with this one, this is where you're going to get individuals whose imagination and humanitarian sides of their nature are going to need to be really worked out empirically before they're ever going to be able to get their best traits to emerge in ways that are non-intrusive, while also being able to really implement their best qualities in other people too. Okay. And at the same time, I've also seen that some people with Jupiter or in conjunct or quincunx and Neptune, I've seen that some of them are really extremely artistically talented, but they kind of rather seek a manner of expression that allows them to stay behind the scenes because they'd rather do that than have to deal with learning how to interact with the public in a superficial way. But, you know, this is Jupiter and Neptune, like I keep saying. So there are blessings to be had regardless. And, you know, all you have to do with this is just work out and find out what works best for you. All right. And at the end of the day, you really don't have to believe a word I just said. Because when it boils down to it, just because you built like that, you don't have to build like that. And what I mean is we all have all this energy available to us. What you do with it is what you do with it. And even beyond that, it's not about what you do. It's about how you do it. And that's some priceless knowledge in itself. And there's been some priceless knowledge of self. If y'all fuck with me on any level, you should have already hit the like button. But it's not too late because you can do it right now and understand that it's not for my ego. It's for the algorithm. I don't need nobody to stroke my ego. Yeah. It just helps me explain my platform right here, man. I want to thank everybody for their love and support. If you're interested in any astrological readings whatsoever, all you got to do is get at me in the comments below. But what I'm going to do is direct you to my email, which is mr.turner1300@gmail.com. And that's actually my preference. Just hit me up there and I'll return an email to you promptly. Okay. And the same thing goes if you want some merch. Okay. But understand that I'm going to sell you all the merch you want. Okay. And I got all kinds of different styles right here. All right. I will sell you all the merch you want, and I'm sure you'll look fabulous in it. But the truth of the matter is, this type of swag that I got, it's got to be in you and not on you. So, let me put it in you.